Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Miller coming to you for the DeKalb County Library. And I was in a class, I had a class a few days ago, and one of my participants had asked me something about a, a wrap around the bottom of a pendant and around the bottom of a large pendant bead. And I've done funnel wraps, and she saw me do the funnel wrap around the veil, the top of the bead where the veil is. And she said she'd seen something similar around an actual bead itself, around the bottom, just wrapped all around the bottom of the bead. I had never seen it, but from her description, I just sat down with a piece of wire and started wrapping, and she got all excited. She said it's something like that. Well, of course, what I did was very messy because I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and we were just kind of figuring it out. But after she left, I kind of sat there and I grabbed some wire and I started playing around with the idea of it until I actually got a really, really pretty wrap. And I wanted to share that today. It's a lot of fun. It's very free form. The cradle that you put your the bead in, it's basically you're creating a cradle for the bead, and it's just wrapped all the way around the bottom. And then I created a little bit of a design around the rest of the bead to finish it off. Now, this is a really good wrap, I think, for a bead that's quite plain. And this is fluorite. It doesn't have a lot going on. It's got, I don't know if you can see that it has a few markings on it. See if I hold it up against a piece of white paper. There are a few markings that are kind of a purple. Wow, they kind of match my shirt. Kind of purplish in color, but for the most part, this is a very clear crystal. So it's one of those that I don't mind putting quite a bit of wire on. If you have something like that that can only be enhanced by the wrap, this is perfect for that. So that's what we're going to do today. Another thing is that this is Asian American Heritage and Pacific Islander Month. And I actually very accidentally managed to source some, um, what are they called? Well, some beads from the Philippines. And I didn't have anything from the Philippines. I cannot believe I was actually able to find these beads. They're absolutely gorgeous. And so we're using that to make our chain to go with our pendant. If I can think of the name of the beads, I will tell you, but right now it's just slipped out of my head. So that's what we're going to make today. It's fairly simple in regard to what we need to put it together. We're going to be using 22 gauge wire to make the bead links and jump rings to link it together. We're also using 22 gauge wire to wrap the pendant. Um, and we'll need a lobster claw clasp in order to hook it together. We're going to use our usual tools. Our round nose pliers, the barrels are round all the way around, starts wider at the bottom and tapers up to almost a tip near the end of the jaws. Square nose pliers, they are slightly rounded on the outside and perfectly flat on the inside. When you purchase these in the store, you want to make sure that they are flat and smooth on the inside. Some of them have little grips or ridges that are used to grip wire to kind of help hold it in place better. But we use soft wire, and that could also damage the wire, and you don't want that. The third thing that we're going to use is a pair of wire cutters. And that's exactly what they're for. They're for cutting our wire. Lastly, you're going to need a ruler in order to measure out the lengths of wire that you need for all of your components. I think that is it. So let's go ahead and get down here to the camera and get started. Okay, the first thing you want to do is give yourself some wire. I would suggest about 2 yards. The pendant that I'm using is probably the largest size that I'm giving out. It's about almost 1 3/4 inches long and 1 1/8 inch wide. So I'm going to give myself 2 yards of wire in order to wrap this. And if I have any left over, which would be great if I had enough to work with later. But I don't want to be too stingy because I want to be able to wrap it any way I want. And I don't know how much you are going to want to do or not want to do, but whatever you don't use, you can cut off and hopefully use for your links or some other project that you might want to do. So what I've got here is 2 inches. There's no way you can see all of that, but there's 2 inches, not 2 inches, 2 yards of wire. And what I'm going to do is thread it through my bead. I think, my goodness, it's a little crinkly on this side. There we go. Sometimes these pendants are very, very finely drilled, very shallow, very tight. Okay. So I'm going to thread that through until it's about halfway and the tips match up. It's going to be a challenge for you to see all of this wire. You don't really need to see anything except the wire that I'm in the spots that I'm working with. So you don't have to worry too much about that, but I need to get the tips of my wire even. Pull that a little bit more to this side and okay. So once I've got my wire strung on to my bead in the center of the wire, I'm going to, yikes. I'm going to go to the top here, all of this wire. I'm going to anchor it under my table. So what I'm going to do is make a loop on top, and you can use your fingers or you can use pliers. I want a nice sized loop on the top. So I'm going to use my fingers and just shape a loop right here at the top of my bead. And I have, again, a fairly large bead, so a nice big bail won't run amiss of my piece or of my crystal. So I got a nice sized little bail here. Let's get that on there. And if you're not happy with the shape of it and you want to get it a little bit more round or something, you can grab something that's round and kind of shape it a little bit better. But we're going to be covering the most of it up anyway with our funnel wrap. So there we go. There's my little bail on the top. So once I've got my little bail made, my loop at the top, I'm going to give this a couple of twists. I'm going to twist it once, 180 degrees, and then I'm going to twist it a second time, like so. So that's what I have for my veil right there at the top of my bead. So now what I'm going to do is bring this wire that's on the top, I'm going to bring it down the back. You're going to need to decide what the front or the back of your piece is. If you don't, it doesn't really matter, that you don't have to worry so much about that. I'm going to bring the wire down what I'm calling the back of my pendant. Then I'm going to bring that wire, working with all this wire, oh my goodness. I'm going to bring that wire up, and then the bottom wire that's coming out of the bottom of my pendant, I'm going to bring that up also, and I'm going to wrap that top wire around the bottom one. And I want to keep it down here at the bottom. of my pendant. So I'm just going to wrap that around, one around the other. So all the way around it. And then I'm going to wrap that second one around the first one. Trying to keep my fingers out of the way so that you can see what I'm doing. So I've got a nice little loop down here. Wrapping that around. My wire is knocking everything around my table. So then once I've got it wrapped all the way around, a nice little loop on the bottom. Come on. What? I'm going to bring this down just a smidge. A little bit closer. Yeah. So once I've got a little knot down here on the bottom, I'm going to start wrapping both of my wires around that little knot. Just wrap around. I have seriously got to move all this stuff out of the way because I'm knocking everything over. So I'm going to wrap these two wires around that little knot. Try to keep it from shifting. You don't want this to start moving around up here. So I'm holding the back of it, the back wire, so it won't shift too much. I'm going to wrap that around. There we go. You can push that down a little bit if you want. I'm going to wrap it around again. Now the second time I'm going to wrap it beside the first one. And now I'm going to start climbing up the bottom of my pendant. Just making a little path, sort of like we do when we wrap a bead on the top, except that this is on the bottom. Same premise. So I'm wrapping that around, keeping my wires side by side. Nice and easy. And if you want to, you can just turn the bead so that you can see what you're doing. So I'm wrapping that around. Nice and close to each other. So, and just start climbing up your pendant. And this is a very, very free form and organic wrap. But I do want to keep my wires side by side and not crossing over each other. And the further you get up your bead, the easier it gets for two reasons, because you're not down here at the bottom trying to find your anchor, number one, and you have less wire flip-flopping around, number two. Okay, now once you get that up as high as you want, there's my little wrap down there. I can stop there if I want. I think I'm going to go one more time around, back, and to the front. I think that's a big enough cradle. So there's my cradle. Yeah, there's my cradle on the bottom. Let's straighten that out a little bit because this is clear and you can see that guy in the back there. Okay, so there's my little cradle. And I think that's enough. You can go as high as you want, but I think I'm going to go about a third of the way around my little bead. So now what I want to do is wrap it around the bead to get it anchored, because right now if I let go of this, it would be fine, but of course this would unravel and I don't want it to shift. So what I want to do is give it a little anchor, but I want to do it with a nice little style. So I'm going to curve my wires around like so. Give it a little curve, and then I'm going to wrap them around the back of my pendant bead and bring it all the way around the front. And I'm going to take one of these wires. Now, this is my wrap. It does not have to be yours. You can do anything you want with it at this point. Let's get that up there, the top. Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is feed one of these wires through this little curve that I have here, just to get it nicely anchored. So I'm just going to feed this one through my little curve, just to lock it down. There we go, nice and snug. And then I'm going to wrap it around the one that's free, this one that I didn't do anything with. So I'm going to just wrap that around the free wire. And I'm talking you through this because I know my fingers are kind of, because I know my fingers are kind of in the way. So I'm wrapping this wire that's coming under the little curve. I'm going to wrap that around the wire that's free. So now I have a little circle there. So now I'm going to put the two wires together, and I'm going to start a little spiral out of both of them. So I'm just going to wrap them around each other until I have a small spiral on the side. There we go. So now I have a little spiral and everything's locked in. It's all nicely anchored. You can make some adjustments if you want to. So it's nicely anchored, and I can kind of stop there if I want to, but I think I'm going to make it a little teeny bit bigger, just a smidgen bigger, because I have this little piece that's sticking out, and I think I'm going to cover it up. There. All right. So now I'm finished with the body of it. It's nice and secure. Nothing's moving. This is a little shifty, but that's okay. I'm going to bring it up to my bail, my pendant bail here. I think I'll give it another little curve. So I'm going to bring it over and curve it around. And bring it around the back, like so. Wrap that around my bail, like so. And now I'm going to continue to wrap both of my wires around my bail and make a funnel around my loop to kind of match the one on the bottom, my nice little cradle back there. And again, you can wrap it by turning your bead around if you want to see what's going on in the back. And there we have it. There's my little funnel wrapped cradle bead. I don't know why I'm calling it that, but once you have it wrapped the way you want it, now see how much wire I have left? I can use that. Yay. Once you have it wrapped the way you want, we're going to go to the back of your bead and cut off the excess wire right in the middle of your loop. Just snip that off. Grab your square nose pliers and push those little tips down inside the funnel. Just slip them right down in there. Nice. Oh. And there's my little funnel. You can make whatever adjustments you need to make. Again, it's very organic, so it's up a little bit on one side, but that's okay. Make some adjustments around here if you want to, if you want to separate these, if you want to just separate them so that it's a little more interesting maybe, or if you want to put them both together, it's entirely up to you how you do that at this point. But there it is. There's our little pendant. Nice. Isn't that cute? And here's the other one I did. This is the other one that I did when I was playing around. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so there's our little pendant. This is a very, it looks like it's more work than it actually is. Tuck that little space, that little thing under there. Yeah. It looks a lot more involved than it actually is, as you just saw. But oh, it comes out so pretty. It really does. I love them. So that's all we needed to do for our pendant. And now we're going to make oh, I remembered the name of the beads. They're called juri beads, Juri. They come from juri palm trees in the Philippines. And what's really interesting about that is that these trees produce the seeds one time and then they die. So what could be more special than that? I don't know. What could? Anyway, let's put that to the side and let's start wrapping our juri beads. All right, so what I need for this, it's going to be a very basic wrap. I'm going to use the pieces that I had left over from my pendant. You need about 1.25 inches on each side, so that's 2.5, in addition to whatever the length of your bead is. And these seeds are cut and dyed, so they're not all the same size or length, as you can see. So what you need to do is measure your bead or put it on your wire, and then give yourself another 1.25 inches on each side to accommodate the loop that you're about to make. So you can measure that or you can eyeball it, whichever is more convenient for you. We're going to do one of our usual wrapped loops. So what I've done is give myself approximately 1.25 inches on one side. I'm going to bend my wire to the side. Then I'm going to grab my round nose pliers and I'm going to slide that short tail of wire in between the jaws of my pliers. I'm going about 1/3 of the way down my pliers because I don't need too large a loop, just large enough for me to create my length. So I'm going to bring the short tail of wire over the top of the pliers and down the side until it's running parallel to the long strand. Then I'm going to open my pliers without moving the wire. So hold on to both tails of wire, open your pliers up, reposition it until the empty arm is on the side and out of the way of the short tail so that you can bring that short tail under and over to the side to create a loop like so. I'm going to roll that a little bit forward because I want this little loop to be right on top in the center of my long wire. And I've said this before, so I always say that this is like a little face, and this is like a scarf. And when I wrap it, somebody said, "Oh, you're wrapping his scarf around his neck." And that's exactly what we're doing. So I'm going to wrap that short tail of wire around the long strand just a couple of times. It just depends on how many wraps you want to do. I'm just going to give it a couple. I'm going to leave that on there because I'm going to put my bead on. And then I'm going to wrap the other side, and I'm leaving that on there because I think I might want to create a little cap on top. This is naturally the way this looks because the inside is darker than the outside. So when they dye it, you still have this dark ring around it. If you want to cover that up, you can use the wire to wrap around it. I'm going to do a little bit of a cap on top just to wrap a little bit around that dark spot and leave a little dark ring exposed just to keep the natural beauty going. So I'm going to bend the wire to the side on the other side of my bead, grab my round nose pliers, slide the wire in between the jaws of my pliers, about a third of the way down, bring that wire over the top of my pliers and down the side until it's running parallel to the bead. Then I'm going to hold on to the bead and the wire so that they don't shift, open up my pliers, reposition that empty barrel out of the way, and bring the wire in between my loop and my bead. I'm going to roll that down a little bit so that it's right on top. That loop is right on top of my bead, like so. Then I'm going to check and make sure both of my loops look like they're the same size, which they do. Yay. Then I'm going to switch to my square pliers, hold on to my little guy's face, and wrap this scarf around his head. Just wrap that around once and twice. And now this is what I was saying about making a little cap. You can see it's starting to cover up that little dark spot on the top there. Focus. Yes. I'm going to wrap it a little bit more. One more time around. Now I'm wrapping the wire around itself. So now I have a nice cap on top, and that dark line is still showing because I don't want to cover up the whole thing. So once I've done that, I'm going to cut off the tail of my wire. And use my square pliers to push that little tip down and under the other wraps so that it's not sticking out and ready to harm me or my clothes. I'm going to do the same on the other side, which is why I kept this intact. After I had wrapped it a time or two, I'm going to give it another wrap around until it looks about the same as the other side. But it's probably not going to be the same number of wraps because you may be able to see that this side of my bead is wider than this side. So again, very organic work here. Okay, so now I'm going to cut that little tail. I have a little space in here. See that little space in the top there? I'm going to squeeze that out because I want it to be nice and close together. I want my wraps to be close together. Okay, so let's cut that little tip off. right? And then push the tip down and kind of under the other wraps. A little bit more. There. Nice. Nicely wrapped. Let's do another one. This is too short. I'm going to use that other piece that I had. Just measure about 1.25 inches. Grab my round nose pliers. Slide my wire, the short tail, in between the pliers. About 1/3 of the way down my pliers. And give it a wrap over the top of the pliers and down the side. Hold on to the wires. Reposition that empty barrel out of the way of my wire and bring the wire under the pliers and outside, creating my little loop. Grab my square pliers, hold on to my little guy's face. It could be a little girl, my little one's face, and wrap the wire around that long tail a couple of times. Okay, and then grab my bead. It's a pretty green one. And slide that wire inside the bead and the bead down the wire. And let's put a bend in the wire to the other side. Now I'm going to cut some of this off because I don't need all of this length flopping around. So I'm going to cut that off. Save this nice long piece for another day. Slide that tail in between the pliers about 1/3 of the way down. Bring it over the top and down the side until it's running parallel to my bead. And there we go. Make my loop just like I did on the other side. And just like I did with the other bead. Good. Now, this little loop is kind of misshapen. I need to fix that. Get round. It's supposed to be round. There we go. That's better. Grab my square pliers, hold on to the face, and wrap that tail around my loop at the base of my loop between the pliers and the bead. Okay, once again, I'm going to make a little snap on top. Yes, nice and close. And then I'm going to cut off that tip. If I can get to it. And take my square pliers and push that little tip under my other wraps. Let's go to the other side and do the same thing. That around until I have a little cap. So it's nice and close. Yes, very nice. And let's get off that tail. And notice how I make sure I hold on to the little tip, otherwise it could go flying across the room, and I really don't like chasing those little tips down. Okay, let's push that little end under the other wraps. And there we have it. Now, one thing you want to make sure of is that both of your loops are facing the same direction. Like that. So when it's laying flat, you can see both of the little faces. Same with this one. Nice and even. Okay, so now you're probably saying, well, now what do you do? Well, now we're going to link them together. All we need to do is open a jump ring. Let me get a closed one and show you how to properly open a jump ring. So what you're going to do is grab your jump ring. First, I'm going to fix that so that these little tips are meeting. The tips of my jump ring should be meeting. Yes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is grab one side of my jump ring with my square pliers and the other side with my round pliers. And I line up the square pliers so that they're facing inward towards the round pliers, which are going from top to bottom. And twist until I have it open. And then I'm going to grab one of my beads, slide that closed loop inside of the jump ring, and do the same with the other bead. Just put them both inside the jump ring and then twist it closed. Now you can twist it the same way you opened it with both of your pliers, or you can use one plier. If the jump rings are big enough, you can use one plier and your finger and twist. There we go. And that is how we link them. You want to check. I can see that this is not quite meeting. The tips are not quite meeting. So take a moment and make sure that they're meeting up nicely and there aren't any gaps in between. I always check to see if my fingernail will fit in there. If it goes in, then it's not closed up enough. So there is my nice little link. And I'm going to attach it to the rest of my piece. So here is one half. Here's the other half. And I'm going to add this on. So basically what I did was just take my beads and link them together, whatever pattern you would like. I did 2 and 2 and 2 for the most part. Grab another jump ring, hold on to it with my square pliers, grab my 2 links that I just made, put one of the links inside of the jump ring, and get the rest of my necklace in that link inside of the jump ring, and close it. Where's that? Okay. I lost the opening. I know it's not completely closed. I need to check and make sure. There you are down there. Get it nicely closed. I like it when I hear it click because I know it's tight together. There we go. And there are the 2 sides of my necklace. Yeah. So now we need to attach them to our pendant. Oh, that's so pretty. Okay, so what do we do? We're going to attach them with the jump ring. So I'm going to grab a couple of jump rings. I'm going to slide one in one side of my pendant and the other one in the other side, in one side of my necklace chain. And I'm going to close the jump ring. Then I'm going to grab another jump ring, put it in the opposite side of my pendant loop, and grab the other half of my chain, slide that loop in, and close. And there we have it. Now notice that the pendant bail is flat because I wanted to be able to put two jump rings in here. If you decide to turn it so that it's front to back or side to side, you can just use one jump ring. But I wanted it to look like this. This is what I wanted it to look like. So there we have it. Now all I need to do is put on my lobster clasp. And again, I need a jump ring for that. So I'm going to twist my jump ring open, slide one of the end loops inside my jump ring, add my lobster clasp, slide that on, and close. Just twist it closed. And our loops are big enough so that I can just hook that right inside my loop. If you want it a little longer, you can make a little jump ring chain to lengthen your necklace. But this is and it hooks right in there. For a complete necklace. Isn't that lovely? There it is. There's my necklace. Oh, I love it. That is so neat. So I got my little jury beads. That's Juri. Look it up. Check it out. I was so thrilled to have these, and I was so thrilled that he knew the name of the beads so that I could look them up myself because I'd never heard of them. I didn't have anything from the Philippines, so this is a real coup for me. And then with the oh gosh, I wish I could remember her name. The person that suggested this little she called it a funnel. I always called this a funnel, and so I kind of knew what she meant to go around the bottom. And we have a nice new wrap. Awesome. Okay, so let's try it on a form and see what it looks like so that you can get a better picture. There it is. There is our necklace. I really, really love this. And I hope that you'll make this because it is not difficult to make at all. It's not, doesn't take a lot of time. And wow, the things that you can do with this, once you get your little cradle made, you can do whatever you want as far as the wrapping part of it goes. You get it secured. You can do whatever wrap you want in the center, and then you take it up and do a funnel wrap around the bail. But there it is. That's our piece. And I am so thrilled that I got to do this. I absolutely love it. So that's our piece for the day. I hope that you like this. I hope that you'll do a little research on these jury beads because they're lovely. And I hope that you will make one of these and let me know how you liked it. Let me know how you liked the video, the tutorial. Let me know of anything else that you might want to see come to life because as you can see, I love ideas and I love them when you give them to me. Now, I'm calling this piece the what am I calling? Spiral Path Pendant because it looks like it's a spiral, a couple of them, and it looks like it's taking a path all the way up to the veil and off to parts unknown. I love it. I started to call it the Wanderer for the same reason. That's just what it looks like to me. So let me know what you think. Which name did you like better? The Spiral Path Pendant or the Wanderer? I would love to hear from you. You can get in touch with me at the email that is listed down there in the description. You can also leave messages and pictures at the DeKalb County Library Facebook page, or you can leave comments at the DeKalb County Library YouTube page. And you're already on YouTube, so you know how to get there. The Facebook page address is down there in the description. So I hope to hear from you one way or another. I love to know what you're thinking and how you like these tutorials and what you might want to see in the future. So please feel free to get in contact with me. And until next time, I hope you enjoy it the rest of your week, wherever you are in it, and your weekend. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.